Hello, 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 my beautiful, beautiful friends from the internet. I hope every single one of you is doing amazingly well today. And if you're not, I hope that the day you have from now on and the rest of the week is a week that you will be able to look back on and say, I'm really glad that this week is over. I'm really glad that I can now have some fun on the weekend and relax a little bit. I know this is a tough time of the year for everybody. This is a stressful time of the year. It is just, it's spring cleaning, it's tax season, it's, ending the semester is still kind of not totally winding down for a lot of people, but you want it to end and classes are tough, and it's just, I know, it's a very difficult time of the year for everybody. And you know what's funny, because I feel like I can see this in all different areas as well. And even watching my favorite NBA teams play and my favorite basketball players, it's funny. You see that a lot of these guys are just dead, man. They play 82 games in a season, which is a lot for basketball. Basketball is a tough sport, and especially with all the traveling and stuff, it's difficult. So this is a rough time of the year, everybody, but I want you to know you can listen to my peaceful voice and drift away into the void and just relax. Clear all the thoughts from your mind and follow the wonderful emptiness that is present within everything. Okay, everybody, thank you for tuning in. My weird intro. Thank you for tuning into the Reddit Asks Us podcast. Before we head into the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, make sure to comment, and also subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts, make sure to leave us a rating, and also please leave us a review. And I am your I don't want to call myself wonderful, but I am your excited, enthusiastic host, Mr. Luke Dick. And I am here to read some stories with you from Reddit and talk about them, answer them, and do whatever else. The audience has been growing. I want to say thank you so much to anybody new who has been tuning in. I know that this show is doing very well on Pandora, and I wish I could interact with you guys a little bit more, but I can't. I can't even get Pandora in my own country that I live in, which is tough. I want to give a big shout out to all my American listeners, all my British listeners, all my Australian listeners, and my listeners from my home country of Canada. I love each and every single one of you. I'm so happy that you guys tune into the show, and I'm so glad that the show has been able to reach you in whatever possible way it has, because the more the merrier. This is not me doing this. This is us. This is a collective experience. I don't want you guys to think that this is all me here. No, this is us. This is our podcast. All right, so let's move into it. This week's episode was, what was your screw it, I'll deal with the consequences later moment? All right. And I feel like all of us have had these sorts of moments, man, especially as I feel like as you get older and you start to get more and more responsibilities, and at the same time you're trying to balance that with actually enjoying your life, you end up saying to yourself, God damn, like there's so much stuff that you feel like doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day has to get done, and you're just like, whatever. So I'm sure we can all relate to these experiences and these moments, because they are not uncommon amongst the human population and amongst humans in general. You are not alone, my friends. First one comes from Lowell. Credit cards. Oh man, I want to fight my 18-year-old me. Then we have a reply here from new to Reddit 4331. Let's actually see how new to Reddit you are. Oh yeah, you are pretty new to Reddit. Thankfully, I was always scared of credit. So I never managed to open a credit card and create a debt that I couldn't pay back. However, now I finally did open one, and it's taking forever to build my credit up. Wish I would have opened one up sooner. I really don't understand. Then this is sidebar, I guess, or another paragraph. I really don't understand how people open up a credit card and spend it on things without paying it back. It was just always kind of obvious in my mind, even as a child, that whatever I spent on it, I still had to pay back. And this is one thing this is another thing that, I don't really understand credit card debt either. I don't understand how people would think that a credit card allows you to spend money you don't have. Like, you can't spend money that you don't have without there being consequences. It's just, it doesn't, like, it's like borrowing money. You're being lent money. You know what I'm saying? If somebody lends you $40, you don't have $40 no matter what you spend it on. You owe somebody $40 because they lent you that money, no matter what way you slice it. I never understood credit card debt, but I do understand how, like, I have seen a lot of people that I know, and I do understand people who have credit card debt, and that's a tough one, man. And I feel like, especially with consumer culture, very much, that was kind of gross. Very much with consumer culture, I feel like, again, it's very alluring. You know what I mean? I don't want to go too hard on people who have credit card debt, and I want to sound like I'm Mr. Like I dodge all these problems and I'm Mr. Know-it-all or whatever. But because obviously I'm not, but I do understand consumer culture can get to a lot of people, man, and it gets to me in its own unique ways too. And I've known people who have had problems with shopping. Shopping is like an addiction, man. Shopping is one thing that it's like people. It offers the same sort of relief as drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Or any sort of vice that people have. Shopping is a very dangerous vice or addiction to have, and specifically when it comes to consumer cultures, our whole society is very much geared towards buying things in a material sort of culture and having and accumulating items, because that in your mind kind of reinforces this idea that you have resources, you have your basic needs provided for you. But at the end of the day, it's kind of an illusion, right? Because for the most part, that stuff is only designed to make you feel like that is what is important to you and what is actually meaningful to you in your life. But it actually doesn't serve a real tactile purpose other than the fact to make you feel like that. So, and there's so much propaganda around shopping too. Like, I feel like shopping itself is very normalized, right? Like going shopping, right? All these sorts of things, and we don't really question it or think much about it. At the end of the day, when we don't really ask ourselves the questions of like, where could I spend my money that it actually would mean something for me and actually kind of help to enhance my life in a very practical or tactile way, instead of just spending it for the sake of spending it, and instead of asking yourself, do I really need this? Do I really, what sort of attachment do I have to these sorts of things? And, I think the more that you question it, the more attachment that you have to your material possessions, the more that you can put yourself in dangerous emotional states, especially because you start to value these possessions so much and these things, these material things, that if anything happens to them, or if something doesn't go right with one of your things, you become extremely upset because you have this very, very deep attachment to it. But anyways, I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, guys, my bad. Anyways, and I use guys again in the gender neutral term. I don't mean to offend anybody by using guys in a specifically male term. There's got to be a better word, because I still feel like I don't know, I say this all the time, but there's got to be a better word. This one is so relatable. This one comes from Strippers and Pepsi. Every time I tell myself I'll just get gas before I drive to work tomorrow, and then I find myself running 15 minutes late, you'd think I would learn at some point. It's always for me, it's always the night before. And then that's what makes me late, because the night before, like say, like I'll go drive to the gym, or I'll go drive to do something with a friend, or just meet up, or go play basketball or something. I'll be out at night, or just chilling alone in my house. Like I'll just be there, like a gas station's up the street, right? And I think to myself, oh yeah, I drove my car today, don't have gas. I should probably go fill up tonight so that by tomorrow morning I'll be good. But I've got this illusion in my head that gas is expensive now, and at some point it's going to be cheaper in the morning. It's just a delusion. It's a total delusion. So then it happens every single time, and then I just put it out of my mind, because I think it has to do with just not wanting to pay the money. And gas has been hella expensive in Canada for quite some time. I know gas is creeping up to prices in America for you guys. So let me see if I can work out this math. I believe it is 3.7 liters to a gallon. So you guys are paying what, like $5 a gallon? So let's see. That's like $1.35 for us. So I'm paying about $1.75 for gas right now. So times 3.7. I'm paying about for my American listeners, I'm paying about $6.50 per gallon of gas. And we've been paying these kind of prices for probably about $6 for probably about a month now. And it was probably $5. Like it was about $4 or $5 basically for the last like 6 months. It's been extremely expensive. Even when I was traveling across the country, coming to Nova Scotia to live here earlier this summer, the gas was very expensive too. It probably would have been anywhere from that, probably about anywhere from $3.50 to $4 a gallon for you guys. That's probably what we were paying since the summertime, like last summer. So it's been hella expensive, but I have this weird delusion in my mind that gas is just gonna be somehow less expensive. Or no, that gas, it's gonna be somehow less expensive in the morning. But it's never true, right? Obviously, and then I just end up screwing it over myself. This happens every time, and I'm aware of it. But like that's the annoying thing, especially like with this whole question here today too. The annoying thing is that we're so aware of the times that we do it. We just keep doing it. And that's what makes us frustrated, is that we not only are we frustrated because of the problem that faces us, but we're also frustrated because we choose to be like, we know we're aware of the problem, but we choose not to deal with it. and then obviously that ends up biting us in the back or biting us in the butt later. So this next one comes from Kaiser Permanente. That sounds familiar for something. Anyways, I had put in vacation for 2 days to go back home for my grandpa's birthday 4 months in advance. Request was accepted. 2 weeks before my vacation, there's a shift change, and now before my trip would take up there's a shift change, and now my trip would take up a whole week of work. I informed my boss that I'll be taking a whole week now. He tells me that that's fine and to go to update my vacation request. So I go to HR to update my vacation request. Instead of just changing the date range, the HR person tries to delete the request and make an entirely new one. Only problem is we were in a vacation blackout time. No new requests accepted for that month because of workload. So they ended up canceling my vacation and then go, oh, whoops, looks like we can't put in a new request. Too bad. My boss gets pissed and has my back, but HR is not budging. Not the first time our department has been screwed over. I tell HR I'm still going on vacation. I bet there's some policy in HR where you can't just like, you have to, like if it's a new request or something like that or additional request, you have to like delete the whole thing just so they can do. Businesses are horrible, man. I hate this sort of stuff. I tell HR I'm still going on my vacation. I'm not going to miss out on seeing my family because you guys are incompetent. Very fair. Fire me or don't fire me. I really don't care at this point. And you know, who would? My boss tells me enjoy my time off and we can worry about stuff when I get back from break. Grandpa's birthday was great. Oh, I'm really glad that was great for you. I'm really happy that was great for you because honestly, man, like I don't know. I have a lot of opinions about massive corporations and large businesses and stuff that I don't care to appreciate a lot of them, and I don't want to get into that on the podcast unless there's a specific question oriented to it, but I'm just not a fan. I come back after and had fun seeing friends and family back home. I come back after a week and I'm still employed. Boss and boss's boss explained to HR that I'm the only one in our department who's qualified to do what I do. And if they want to lose a bunch of money getting a third-party contractor to replace me, then that's their right to. They'll just have to explain to the finance officer and general manager why we'd be bleeding money all of a sudden. I don't work there anymore, but I hope my old boss is doing well. He was a homie. Side story, that same boss took 2 weeks of vacation when the Shadow Larks expansion of World of Warcraft was released. Man's got his priorities straight, haha. When I asked him when I asked him what did he tell HR and his boss, he was like, those people don't need to know what I do or don't do with my vacation time. I'm taking my vacation time. Please normalize this. I remember even just in like entry-level jobs I've had, in the past, where I'll get my bosses asking me like what I'm doing with my break. And I'm like, kind of like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but this isn't really any of your information. I don't want to be rude or disrespectful, but at the end of the day, what I do with my vacation time and my free time should be personal, right? Like that, am I obligated to tell people what I'm doing with my vacation time? If I want vacation time off, then I want vacation time off. I feel like when businesses or people start to pry at why you want time off and, you know, what the purpose is or reason is for that you're taking time off, it's like, why does it matter? If it's my right to be afforded these days, do I have to tell you? Like, is that an obligation? Am I obligated legally to tell you why I'm going on vacation? I think we should normalize this, everybody. Normalize the idea that you don't have to disclose to your boss unless you want to or like where you work. That's totally fine. But there are some businesses that will try to make you feel guilty, right? They'll guilt trip you into taking vacation, right? So if you say something like, I'm tired, I want a day off, then they'll just be like, I don't really think you should be using your day off for that. They'll try to guilt trip you. I've had this said to me before. Like, they'll be like, I don't really think that's a good reason to take it. I'm like, it's none of your business, man. This is not why. Like, you don't need to know why I'm taking time off. That's none of your business. And it's frankly kind of personal. And I don't wish to disclose that information with you unless, you know, you are personally related to me in some sort of intimate way. And I don't care to disclose that information. So you don't have to be rude about it, but just say, I don't care to disclose that information. I think that what I do with my free time is of my personal concern. And that's it. You don't have to be rude. You can even try to say it even nicer than I did. But you got to be assertive and you got to tell them that. Draw lines, man, because otherwise they're going to guilt trip you into working. And that's not right. That's not right. You're a human being. Your life is more than work. Your life amounts to more than what you do for a living. You know, you're a conscious being, and you should be afforded rights and privileges in the fact that you are alive, and that means something. So have some dignity and pride in yourself, guys, and don't take this guilt tripping and negative behavior from positions of quote unquote authority. Don't fall into that trap, my friends. So this next one comes from Japan Engineer. Was about to hit a tree while snowboarding. Either break my board on it to lessen the blow or break my body on it. Chose to protect my board. Regretted it ever since. Edit, a lot of people are asking me what the damage was. I slammed my thigh into the tree and took the full brunt of it. I didn't break any bones, but I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. However, that was the best part. I went to the hospital for a check, and they said it was all good. But what they didn't notice was that the right side of my back had shifted. Ouch. So when I tried to run or play sports, the ligaments and meniscus in both knees got destroyed. Oh, and now I can't run anymore. Oh my goodness. Oh, jeez, the meniscus. So the meniscus, I believe it's a ligament or a tendon, like in between your knees. Like in between your kneecap, basically. That kind of separates your the upper knee and the upper half of your leg and the lower half of your leg. And I've had meniscus issues, especially playing basketball, because just all the jumping and a lot of the pressure that you put, and especially just the way that my body is, kind of built. I do put a lot of pressure on my knees, especially when jumping. And if I don't warm up properly, it hurts so bad. And another thing, man, my friends, skiing and snowboarding is very, very fun. It is a super fun time. However, if you are new to it, I suggest that you really, really, really work on the basics until you have it down, because a lot of people might try to do something very difficult in their first couple times so they feel confident, and that sometimes it just has to do with confident people, but that does not necessarily mean that you actually have the skill to be able to handle some of the, more difficult, like black diamond and double black diamond runs on mountains, and you can hurt yourself extremely, extremely bad. I remember one time that I was skiing, and this was a miscommunication. So we were kind of skiing through the trees, and I lost one of my friends. And so I didn't realize, but they had decided to wait for me. But one of my friends was in the middle of the run, and then we were kind of skiing on the side of the mountain on these trees. Like, we weren't going directly downhill. We were kind of skiing a little bit more to the side to get into the trail, and then we were going to head down. And so then as we were kind of traversing on the side of this mountain through these trees, my one friend stopped, but he stops right in the middle of the run. So then I'm kind of staring. I have nowhere to go. So and I can't really stop because it's very narrow, and I ended up having to, like, sort of avoid him and swerve off to one side. But when I did that, I completely lost control, lost my skis, and my torso, like my abdomen, I fell, and it kind of, like, it's momentum, right? It's just how the momentum carries you. And the momentum carried me to the point where I was I smacked into a tree, and I kind of wrapped around it. I kind of wrapped my abdomen and the side of my body kind of wrapped around the tree. And it hurt so bad. And those are like little insignificant things that can hurt you. And, like, it's a very dangerous sport to be involved in and be engaged in. Is it super, super fun? Yes, but only if you actually, are skilled and have the skill level to be able to do that sort of thing. And I remember when I was younger as well, in elementary school, we went on a ski trip just to a hill that's, like, close-ish to where I live. And there was a kid who had just moved, and I was in elementary school. There was a kid who had just moved, and he was from Malaysia, never skied before in his entire life. And we were skiing down the hill, and he had been on the bunny hill all day. And then at the very last run, some of my friends decided to take him. I was not there for this. I was not present for this. But some of my friends decided to take him to the very top and decided he could do a black diamond run. And they did that, and he got lost in the trees, almost freaking killed himself. And they had to get the snowmobile up there to come and get him. And it was just like, that stuff is very dangerous, man. Especially the injury potential when it comes to skiing and snowboarding is very high, and it's quite dangerous. But it's extremely fun. So don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure that if you're ever thinking about doing something like that, you got to make sure that you are being safe about it and not being careless and doing things off of a whim of confidence instead of actually having the base level skill set. There's been a funny video on Instagram circulating recently of some kid taking his Spanish cousin to snowboarding, and the kid is he's struggling, and it's so funny. He's leaning back on his board, so it's flying in the air, and he's running into snowbanks and running into flags and stuff that they put on the mountain. It's a funny video. I'm sure it's been on a lot of mainstream Instagram pages. Maybe you guys have seen it. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. Anyways, so moving on. This one comes from Mellifluous Penguin. I had developed feelings for a coworker, small company, about 20 people. It sounds like The Office. We kind of flirted at work, and some people were starting to suspect something, but we managed to keep it professional. One night we had a few drinks, could not decide to part ways, and one thing led to another. The morning after, when we woke up together, neither of us could muster the strength to go to work. She called in sick. A few minutes later, I sent an email to use a day off, as things were quite slow at work anyway. Sounds a lot like The Office, but we knew all too well that the both of us were not showing up, with coworkers aware of our plans to get drinks together the night before. Well, we weren't going to fool anyone anymore, and the following weeks/months were pretty awkward indeed. We never made it official for the time that it lasted. Well, as long as everything was respectful, that's all you can ask for, right? As long as everything is consenting and respectful, then go for it. But I can see how that would be a problem. I don't know what workplace. What is it like for you guys? What is it like for workplace relationships with you guys? Because can businesses tell you you can't date somebody that you work with? Is a thing? Can they do they have the authority to tell you if you date somebody in the office? This is so difficult, man. Nowadays, humans inherently are, romantically active beings. That's something we seek out, right? And to tell someone on the basis of a business to deny their romantic attraction to somebody, I find can be unrealistic, because that is a base level sort of response that humans have, right? It's one of our most basic functions that we even have as a species is to, propagate our species and to continue on the continuation of human life, right? And so that obviously has to do with romantic relationships and dating in general. I don't know. I've never really had that issue where I've worked. I haven't really worked at a lot of places where, I've worked there for an extended amount of time, like it's some sort of, job, and actually met people through there and, people that I work with and stuff. I'm not really too sure about that sort of thing. But as long as everything was consenting and everything was respectful, then by all means. And I guess following the rules, whatever. Anyways, so this next one comes from Hanky Pank 3. I stayed up with my friends playing video games online until the sun started rising. In my mid-30s, and that level of I'm in my mid-30s, and that level of sleep deprivation the next day was worse than a hangover. This is so funny. I feel like as a kid, you just have so much energy that like an all-nighter is like nothing. Like an all-nighter doesn't feel like it's a big difficult task to do. I could, like, when I was a kid, all-nighters would be like, man, we could be running around outside at like 3 a.m. in the parks and just running around our neighborhoods in our town, like just doing random stuff. Like I never thought as a kid that pulling an all-nighter was something difficult, I never wanted to go to sleep. But now, like, it was just so funny. Just recently, I was last weekend, this past last weekend, so I'm just going to take a drink of my water, my friends. Just this past weekend with my friends, shout out my friends Sam and Elias. We do the Rap Chat podcast together. Rap Chat podcast, Toronto Raptors basketball podcast. If you're ever interested in basketball or anything like that. Also, so yeah, we did a Star Wars marathon. We watched the trilogies in release order. So the first 3 trilogies. So that's A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And we wanted to start watching them at like, I don't know, 3 or 4, but we ended up watching them at like 6 or 7, and then we had breaks in between. And we ended up finishing the movies at like 2 a.m. probably. And it's like, I remember, and Elias was almost falling asleep. I feel like, and I'm tired as hell, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, how I could have literally watched like I could have watched the old movies and the prequels like all in one night. Did a giant pulled a complete all-nighter, literally 12 hours of watching movies, and I would have been like, that morning I would have been like, wow, that was crazy that we just did that. Went to bed for a couple hours and then just got up and started living life. And it's just so funny because as you get older, you just do not have that energy. You just don't. And the fact that we're all just so tired. I mean, I guess we have a lot in our minds. Not like we have total free time, but yeah, when we get that chance, when it gets too late and Elias starts nodding off, and he was one of the guys who wanted to do this thing, and we're like, hey man, you can't fall asleep. That's against the rules. Okay, so next one comes from Dominius. Broke down fishing way out in the sticks with my cousin. We were out of cell service, it was getting dark, and we were walking back towards the main roads. We spotted a black bear walking the trail behind us. It kept its distance, but clearly smelled a backpack full of trout. Jeez. Dropped the bag of fish, and we kept moving. I see a cabin up ahead, so we broke open the door and stayed there until morning. While there were some spark plugs in the while we were there were some spark plugs in a drawer when I was searching for a piece of paper and a pen to leave a note. The plug wasn't the same as my UTV called for, but it was a close match, just a hotter plug number 8 versus number 9. We left a note stating I took 2 spark plugs, used the propane to stove cook a can of soup, but we found as well some crackers. Left $100 for the doorknob/lock and the plugs, as well as my contact information. 3 weeks later, the owner called and said not to worry. He was glad the cabin helped us, and I asked if he wanted any more compensation. We said no. Cabin was not vandalized, and he had a spare doorknob in the shed. Yeah, so I broke into a cabin for the night, took some spark plugs to fix my side-by-side, and ate some vegetable soup. Left owner 5 $20 bills and fixed my machine and went home. Also, the bear took our catch. Wow, that's too bad. That's very much too bad. Grinding all that much for... I'm not really much of a fisherman or anything like that, but I know how much when you're doing a big bush trip like that. I spend a lot of time camping and going on trips like that. And I know how much it takes to, when you're out in the boonies, man, and you're grinding for everything, and then you're like, finally we got this fish, and that's all you want really, just to cook up the fish, and to have sort of something that you can come back with, and then to have to leave that behind, especially because of the threat of a bear. Like, I mean, it's a cool story, I mean, above anything else, but it's just like, I can understand how that would be discouraging, and especially because you have to break into somebody's cabin, which I could imagine you probably didn't necessarily want to do that. Next one here comes from Throwaways Me Too. I was a teenager in a friend's car. We were smoking weed, and then then he was getting pulled over. Driver said, "Throw it, man." I was like, or "Throw it, man." That's like my stoner voice. I was like, "He'll see that anyway. This car smells a lot like weed anyway. It's good. So let me just finish this real quick." So the cop arrived in the car, and this kid was sitting there smoking weed. The look on his face was kind of hilarious. I wasn't raised to be wasteful, for goodness sake. Oh my God. That's so heat. Like, what the hell, man? Not only are you guys, like, clearly stoned driving around, but, I mean, I don't know how long ago this was, so maybe that's before even that was considered impaired driving, because who knows, but, and I know weed, if this comment's coming from the States, weed in the States is so weird. Like, I'm from Canada, where marijuana has been legalized federally since 2017, I think. 2018. I think it, like, fully became legal in 2018. But anyways, like, we don't really have to worry. Everything for the rules, for the most part, are very, like, straightforward on a federal level. But in the United States, it's so weird because they categorize marijuana as, like, a Schedule 1 substance, I think. And that's, like, worse than heroin, like, according to how they schedule drugs. And that's federally, right? So if you get caught, I mean, in the United States, you guys don't really have any sort of federal police system, whereas, like, in Canada, we have what's called the RCMP, and they're basically like a federal version of the police. You guys have the FBI, but the FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're not necessarily like a police force. I mean, they are a police force, but not necessarily like the RCMP. The RCMP has, like for example, like, you don't necessarily see FBI cruisers casually doing routes in a city, whereas, like, here you see RCMP vehicles that look just like cop vehicles, police vehicles, and have just as much of authority as the police. They dress just like the police, and the vests and the guns and everything, but they are just police on a federal level. Anyways, why did I say that? I don't even remember, but in the United States, it's so weird. Oh, yeah, because you guys don't have any sort of federal police. So all of your police are, like, state police for the most part. You don't have any government police stations necessarily. So when you get it's, like, legal in some states, but how does that even make any sense? Like, how can something federally completely illegal be completely legal in a state? And yet you guys get, penalized for that stuff. I don't know, man. It's, like, for this next one, there's a reply said, "I should confess," from user I should confess. "If you were in the state where I live, Tejas, or Texas, you'd be in much worse legal trouble had you thrown it out rather than be sitting in the car for smoking it. Tossing it would be a 3rd-degree felony for tampering with physical evidence, up to 10 years in a penitentiary. Sitting and smoking would be a simple possession of marijuana, a Class B misdemeanor with a max 180 days in the county jail." Like, what the hell, man? Like, man, the United States is so weird, like, with their laws and stuff, man. Like, you throw this out the window and you can get 10 years in prison for that. Seems a little bit like an overreaction, but whatever. So this next one, I think this will probably be the last story that I read today, everybody. Sorry, I kind of did a little bit more ranting than I would have liked to do today, but a lot of these are about people at work. And I know that work is still a very large issue going on. Not only is there issues going on in the world and world politics, like, with the Ukraine stuff, and COVID's still in the back of everybody's mind. I mean, things are loosening up everywhere, and if you're living in the United States, things are probably already looser than they have been in Canada for quite some time. But this is another thing that's still on people's mind is the work crisis. And this is something that's happening in Europe, Canada, and America, honestly, really all over the world, is people just feeling not they don't really care about work. Is not something that they necessarily prioritize anymore like people used to. It's changing. The culture's changing. People don't feel like their workplace cares about them or sees them even as human beings. They're kind of just seen as more like machines, and I can very much understand that. And it's an issue on a lot of people's mind. It's a really crazy time that we're living in right now. So I feel like, I don't know, just got a little bit of a ranty mood. So quit my job in a fit of anger. This one comes from S. Sami. Quit my job in a fit of anger without any backup plan. I was an assistant manager at a dollar store when my manager said that the DM had told her, or district manager had told her, she had too many full-time assistants and would have to downgrade someone to part-time. There was a girl who was basically the next manager in training, so of course not her. Another woman who was a hard worker, plus she had just started paying for insurance and needed the money, so not her. Me, sole provider for a family of 4, while my husband worked on getting his GED for better jobs. Admittedly, not the best or hardest worker, but I was good enough to have been promoted from cashier after 6 months and trained for 2 weeks or less. Was generally reliable and rarely called out, never had any issues with stocking incorrectly, unloading trucks, or balancing the registers and submitting paperwork at the end of the day. Then there was Pat. Pat needed money as the sole provider for her household true. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but everyone had been struggling to train her for 4 months, and she still couldn't do returns on her own. Often had problems balancing the till. Couldn't be left in charge of the store alone unless the most experienced and knowledgeable cashier was working, and then needed someone else to come in to close the store for her. Regularly stocked items in the wrong places. Straight up lied more than once, saying she checked items and they didn't fit. They did. Told the beer order guy, I don't know how to do that, and call someone else for it later. Bye. Oh my goodness. Even though the guy was great and had been working with us long enough that all I had to do was tell him how many of each one we had left, and he would replace an order for us. Guess who my manager decided to downgrade? Me, with the excuse that I was technically the newest because I had taken an extended leave during my pregnancy. See, this is what I'm saying, everybody. I had a philosophy class about this, and we talked about how the work that a lot of women do in our society isn't seen as quote-unquote productive work. Raising a child in our capitalistic society, in our monetary society that values profits and making money and how much profit you can basically squeeze out of a human being, and how instrumental they're seen as like instrumental objects. They're not necessarily seen as people. So the work that a lot of women do outside, and the work that's put on a lot of women to do outside of work, like such as raising children, or even going through pregnancy in general, that's not seen as work because it's not beneficial to a company. They don't profit off it. There's no incentive. There's actually incentive for women today in today's society not to have children, because then they will be able to quote unquote compete more with men for positions, because men don't have to necessarily take, or don't traditionally take that time. I know a lot of men do, but traditionally most men don't, and that burden is put on the women, and then they go through this extremely mentally challenging time when they're trying to raise their children, something they spend all of their waking hours doing, but yet our society doesn't actually see that as productive work. And that is disgusting. That's horrible. That's terrible. Like that something is clearly wrong with our society if we're valuing how instrumental a person can be, and how a company or group or entity can use this person to create a profit for themselves, an incentivization for themselves, rather than something that is so basic. Like the people who made those rules wouldn't be here without women and pregnancy. Like this is clearly messed up. There's clearly some sort of discontinuity with how our society is structured. I'm sorry for going on this rant today, but geez, man, this kind of stuff makes me mad. And then of course, she says, I panicked the next day over how stupid it was and started thinking of ways I could crawl back and kiss ass. Like, this is horrible. At least part-time would have been something while my husband tried to get another job. Thankfully, me quitting turned out to be a good thing, because a week later, a friend of ours told my husband that his job was hiring. Now I get to stay home with the kids, and we still make almost double what we were making both working full-time jobs. Reply from Master_Jellyfish 580, the good ending. Yes, very much so, the good ending. But the good ending does not necessarily happen for everybody, folks. The good ending is not always true for everybody, especially in our society today where inflation is just insane and people feel like the dollar that they earn doesn't get them as far, and it really doesn't, and that's true. And it's horrible. It's degrading, and it makes people feel it messes with people's self-worth and their sense of self and their overall happiness and enjoyment as a human being living on this planet, experiencing consciousness and experiencing every waking moment as a human being aware of your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. And to that I say, you are all beautiful human beings. You are all wonderful and unique people. Every single one of you is different. Every single one of you is unique. And every single one of you is an individual in your own special way. None of you guys are exactly the same. You have your own unique interests. You have your own unique personalities. And that is enough. That is absolutely enough, my friends. You are all shining, glimmering pieces of stardust. We are all children of the universe. And I want to thank every single one of you for listening to this podcast and to tuning in every single week. I am thrilled. I'm thrilled every time I get to record and speak to all of you and have a conversation with all of you, because you guys are beautiful. You really, really are. And I love every single one of you. So with that said, thank you for tuning into the Reddit Asks Us podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts, make sure to leave us a rating, and also please leave us a review. I am your grateful and honored host, Luke Dick, and I will see you guys next week. Love you and peace.